If you're in the market looking for a motorcycle, a cruiser to be more specific, and have about 5 lakh rupees in your pocket, you have a lot of extremely good options to choose from. But if you're of a certain bent of mind and want to ignore all of those great options, walk across the road to find something unique, you will come across this motorcycle. It is a Keeway Benda V302C, and in a lot of ways it is definitely interesting. But is it any good? I'm not so sure, and I will tell you why. First, a couple of very good things about this motorcycle because it deserves mentioning. I think the design is absolutely fantastic, and it needs to be because in the bobber category, which this motorcycle really is, design is paramount. And bobbers traditionally have a very different stance because the whole category was created by independents. So a typical bobber, a proper bobber, would really have no front fender and a very short rear fender, and that's where the name comes from. Bobber means a bobbed rear fender. But of course, big manufacturers need to comply with a lot of industry protocols, and that's why you do not see them going for a complete naked look. But in general, this is a good design, very balanced as well. Great, nice front, very, very beautifully designed midsection. And the rear, of course, is defined by a nice architecture of the fender itself, which has a bit of a taper at the end. So in balance, this is a very good design, but the midsection is where all the focus really should be, because this is just a 300cc motorcycle, but it has a V-twin engine with a bank of about 45 degrees. And the second good thing is the handlebar design. It doesn't have crazy curves. It is almost like a straight bar design with good approach when you are seated on the bike. And this just serves the purpose of the motorcycle in a very nice way. And the whole geometry that it offers, only the way that you sit, especially for tall riders, is not bad at all. Now from here, things really start to go southwards, and you will definitely categorize this motorcycle as a premium product. 5 lakh rupees is not a small amount of money, but it does not really have a lot to show for it, apart from probably the paint job, which is definitely smashing good. For example, there is discoloring on the engine itself, and that does not seem to be caused by any external fatigue or impact because there is no crash that we can spot from anything on the motorcycle. The brakes are rusting. In fact, there is rust on a lot of other parts of the motorcycle as well, areas that you will otherwise not really inspect very closely. But if you start looking very keenly, you will find rust on the tiniest of the things. The calipers even have rust on them. Things that contribute to the riding geometry are a little flawed. For example, the placement of the pegs, not the most ideal, and also if you again are a little tall, you will find that the A box really fouls with the calf muscles, and it's not very pleasant when you ride on the road, and it gets worse if you're going at speed. The way the gear lever is positioned is quite flawed because you really have to force yourself into shifting, and the shift itself happens quite low into the play, and to pull up or to get into higher gears, it's even more cumbersome. But things in front of the rider that are good and great quality are the switches and the instrument cluster. The switches feel really nice and they have a good positive response to every input that you make. And the instrument cluster, that's bright enough, and it will tell you all the things that you really need to know. It will give you all the information, and it's also very easy to use. A couple of peculiar ergonomic and usability issues. The first is the position of the key slot. Now this is placed in a way that the rider cannot really see the slot itself, so you will have to get up and then insert the key. And the other one is the fuel filler cap. Now the overall quality of this is okay, but the lid that you lift up, that on this test unit is already just wrong. And another thing which can be a big issue, especially in our riding conditions, is the placement of the fuel canister for the brakes. Now usually you will see the canisters being placed on the handlebars. For example, this one is serving the front brakes, but for the rears, it's right here on the lever itself. So in case of a fall, that canister is the first to take the impact, and it is going to break. So I think the engineers could have given a little bit more thought on the placement of the canister for the rear brakes as well. But now let's come to the centerpiece of the motorcycle, or the engine. Now, it's really unique that this one has a V-twin configuration. For a 300cc motorcycle, that's unheard of. So you have novelty going on over there. And it's a fairly simple design. It's a single overhead cam, and you get about 29.5 bhp at 8500 rpm and about 26.5 newton meters at about 6500 rpm. You would imagine, because this is a V-twin configuration, the refinement is going to be really high up, but that's not the case. Till about 4000 rpm, it's actually pretty good. But the moment you start stretching it, go beyond 5000, 5500 rpm, 6000, or anywhere beyond 4000 really, it is a massive concern, because you will have vibrations coming in through the seat, through the pegs, through the handlebars. So in totality, the experience is not something that you expect out of a motorcycle of this sort. And that's where the riding experience just goes for a toss. You have vibrations coming in from the bars, from the seat, from the pegs, everywhere. And it is not pleasant. It's just something that needs to be ironed out immediately. Forgive the engine for the vibrations, and you will realize that it pulls pretty confidently. The numbers may not seem very big, but the way this thing goes through the gears and just gains speed is actually not bad at all. It will also give you a reasonable amount of spile, because even at lower revs, this thing, the moment you apply some throttle, will pick up speed instantly. So the calibration of the lower gears is done very nicely. It starts to taper off, of course, especially when you get into the higher gears. 4th, 5th and 6th, they are not very evenly spaced out. So I think over there you will find the top-end performance tapering off. But otherwise, just as a regular motorcycle to commute in city and also just exploit this on some open roads, this thing is not going to be bad from the engine power delivery point of view. And the engine is mated to a 6-speed gearbox, and you will really find another novelty in this bike, which is this thing is belt driven. It's not chain drive. And yes, we all know that belt drives have their own set of issues, especially with dust and muck and just a general maintenance side of things. And with belt drive, you can also suffer tension issues. It can slacken off. But as I said, this thing really adds to the aesthetic appeal of this motorcycle. Now, tires are, of course, a first contact patch for any machine. And you really need to have confidence leaning in. And yeah, even if we were being a little playful on the motorcycle and just trying to lean a little bit here and there, these things did not give up at all. So full marks to the tires. And then you explore the suspension on bad patches, and you start to question yourself. Why did you buy this motorcycle in the first place? Because the front telescopic forks that they are, they offer you very limited amount of travel, 120 mm or thereabouts. But that's also okay. I will forgive it for that also. The rears, they offer you just 42 mm. That's like this much. And it's again a very agricultural setup. It's just springs and a little damper in the middle. And the fact that this just is so low on compression, or the travel is just this much, it just transmits everything from the road onto your back. And if you unfortunately have to spend some time riding this motorcycle on bad patches, then you will need to go and see a physiotherapist, because you will need to get your spine straightened out. But the good bits now. I think this thing really handles pretty okay. The fact that this has very stiff suspension setup. If you're riding on smooth tarmac, this is going to be rock solid. And that also then brings me to the stability. Even at high speeds, and I went till about 130, 35 odd, this thing was rock steady and did not really have any complaints over there. So in terms of the entertainment factor, only if you're sticking to very good tarmac conditions, then this thing is going to be a nice, playful companion. But otherwise, for general use with the roads being the way they are, potholes everywhere and whatever have you, this thing is going to be a big question mark when you get home and start thinking about the amount of money that you spent. Ex-showroom cost of about 4 lakh rupees translates after taxes and everything to about 5 lakh. Not worth it, I think. If I were to buy a 300cc motorcycle, I will look elsewhere. Established brands, better products, and I will get something as default. Peace of mind when I ride. With this one, I'm not very sure. It's okay in parts, but it's just not there yet. And those motorcycles are going to be half the cost of this one. So at 5 lakh rupees, I expected a lot better overall execution, let's say, than what I have in front of me. So Keeway has a fair amount of road to cover when it comes to giving you a product which is very nicely done.